Thank you for joining me on this video introducing my book to the world entitled From a Sheltered Life, The Journey of a Memoir. Let me tell you about it. So I have been having these letters that I have been carrying around with me for like all my life. All my life. Every time I moved, these letters were there, they moved, and I moved around a lot. Finally, it dawned on me, hey, these letters would be a great basis for a book. I mean, the letters had everything in it: love, boys, death, domestic violence. It was very soap opera like. Yeah. So I said, I'm gonna write a book. And as it turns out, the letters were between two pen pals. So I was 12 years old with a pen pal also named Ruth. So we were both born in 1958 in New York City. Ruthie D in Brooklyn, and me, Ruthie G, in the Bronx. And we were 12 years old when we started writing to each other. And one of the things we have in common, well, two things we have in common. We met at church, and we were both preachers' kids. Both our fathers were preachers. So the book is mostly about Ruthie D because the her letters to me makes up most of the letters. You know, real letters, not made up letters, because I couldn't have made those letters up. And I still have all the letters that she wrote to me. It's like 96 letters, almost a hundred letters. And what we wrote about most of the times, what she wrote about most of the times, was boys and books and movies and music. Of course, it's the best music from the 70s, one of the best decades in the 20th century. And Ruth was crazy about the music. So when it came to music, it was just all about the R&B and the soul music. And if you was there, you know what I'm talking about. So the book has interesting topics. And even though she's the main character, you know, her life is her life and her words. I get to add my life, what I thought back then when I got her letters in the mail, what I think now about the letters I got in the mail back then. So I have an introduction for each letter that she wrote to me. And then at the end of each letter, there's a summary of what I felt back then, what I feel about it now. You know, maybe some event happened in my life that was similar to what she had written about in that letter. So I talk about that. I talk about how things impacted my life, you know, politics, magazine articles, because I grew up reading Jet Magazine, Ebony Magazine, the New York Daily News. So I was always aware of political things going on in the world. And you can say I was paying attention. You know, I remember important things that happened, you know, Martin Luther King assassination, George Jackson, Jonathan Jackson, Angela Davis. I even remember the conflict in the Middle East. Lots of things. Charles Manson and the Sharon Tate murders. All of that I saw in the New York Daily News. So I believe that it's an interesting read because it's written in a way that I haven't seen any book written before. I'd like for it to appeal, for the book to appeal to people who grew up in New York City in the 70s, and, you know, to people who have a taste for things of a historic and cultural importance. To people who would enjoy reading a different kind of story told in an innovative way. So I think it's an interesting way of writing. The only one I've seen close to this style is the person who narrated the letters of Samuel Clemens, also known as Mark Twain. He didn't really narrate the letters. It's like he gave comments at the end of each letter. Yeah, so I thought that was interesting, interesting aspect. As it turns out, my book is not an epistolary tale because it's based on real letters. Epistolary is when the letters are not true letters, and a book that would be an epistolary tale would be um, Count Dracula by Bram Stoker. That's an epistolary tale. Of course, there's several other epistolary tales that are famous, letters, but mine is based on real letters, so I couldn't call it an epistolary tale. Yeah, so I thought that was interesting because I was ready to call it an epistolary tale. But it's an interesting story, and I think that once a person starts to read it, that they will want to finish it. It brings out a lot of interesting points, a lot of, you know, things that's important in life and things that you have to learn to deal with. So, yeah, I hope you will enjoy going on this journey with me, and you will continue to follow me as I bring my story to the world. And I believe in the next posting, I am going to read one of the letters. It's a letter that recently turned 50 years old. It's from August 1974. So, yes, join me for the next post where you get to hear an actual letter written by Ruthie D to Ruthie G. Thanks for joining me.